going. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm excited for this today. This is the first time I have formally talked on things that I personally study and have a ton of interest in. Who knows where this will go? This may become a thing for me in the future. It's kind of a trial run, so I would love your feedback on if you find value in it, or if you learn something. I hope you do. Like I said, there will be no PowerPoint content. We're going to kind of do it old school lecture style on the whiteboard and some writing. But want to cover the 5 factors of health, which is a framework that I personally did not come up with. It's a framework of a elite CrossFit coach, and I've followed for a really long time, but I have kind of morphed it using just extra studies that I've done. I have a resource document that I will share after this that has podcasts and books and a ton of just content related to what I'm going to talk about today. But before I do that, you saw it in the bottom, just medical health. I'm not a medical professional. I will recommend, especially when we talk about nutrition and some of the more intense forms of exercising or training, some programs that I follow that I do recommend coaching in that regard. But I have been in this space for as long as I can remember. I started gymnastics at the age of 3. Did that super competitively until I was 17. And then found CrossFit in 2011 and competed in that sport for a while. And, now I'm a mom of 3, executive that works out in her garage. And so, have explored this at extremes, and currently in a place where I use these factors to really just live a balanced, healthy lifestyle. So that's just kind of context for what we're going to go into. A few kind of, just to kind of anchor us to the things that I talk about, how I'm applying them. So sort of like just a random fitness program, right? What about or diet, right? Very mainstream in social media and live media, in terms of there's a million of them out there. And any one of them would probably work for a specific goal. Not a single one of them will work for every goal. And so I want you to keep that in mind. We're going to anchor around the goal of we want to be healthy, high-performing humans that can kick butt in our 90s. So everything I'm going to talk about today is with that goal of performing your best today and building a life and habits that will extend your health span as you age. Again, there are different times in our life where we will have different goals. It could be compete competitively in CrossFit. It could be the bulk. It could be to lose weight. And all of those, this framework can still apply. You tweak the levers differently. So, but for today, we're talking about healthy, high-performing humans that can kick butt in our 90s. So that's kind of the goal here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through each of the 5 factors, which are how we eat, how we sleep, how we train, how we think, and how we connect. And then talk about how do you apply that as a busy human in an intense industry. Consulting is an intense industry. This is an intense job. And so how do you focus and choose to apply those things while you have other commitments that we all do. So with that, I'm going to kind of start with the framework here. And we're going to test to make sure by the end this will be completely built out. Can my virtual friends see the board? Okay, great. How we eat. I kind of teed this up. Name a diet you've heard of.
Paleo.
Keto. Another one.
Paleo.
Anyone?
Mediterranean.
Carnivore.
Mediterranean. Vegan. Any others? Has anyone heard the carnivore diet? It's kind of crazy. Don't recommend it. So again, all of these diets could work for a specific purpose. What the research has shown, however, is actually much more simpler than that. So I'm going to give you that key today. Drink water. Food. Eat. Not too much. Mostly protein and plants. Everyone's favorite, moderate alcohol. Drink water, eat food, not too much, mostly protein and plants, moderate alcohol. Let's talk about this though, a little bit more specifically. So like all this science, I've listened to probably 1,500 hours of nutrition science podcast. This is it. This is the result, right? It's not that complex, but let's talk about each of it. So drink water. Your body is 85 to 90% water. So your ability to build muscle, your ability to metabolize food, your ability to use your brain to think, which we need in the job we do, is all based on here. And most of this population walks around dehydrated and you don't know it. And so the rule of thumb, Billy, do we have more? I'm concerned about the green, but we'll try it. If at some point you can't read this, my virtual friends, let me know. So drink water. Typically there's like a formula, which is, we won't go into, but most people need between 90 and 120 ounces of water a day. Okay. 90 and 120 ounces of water a day. If you have a Stanley, that's 3 of them, right? If you're drinking from something smaller, 20, 25, it's 5 of them. So find something that you can be consistent with. I personally drink lukewarm water or like room temperature water, not super cold, out of a straw. I think that's how I kind of get to this. I also drink at least 30 ounces before my first cup of coffee, which is a forcing function for me to do it because I really want the coffee. So you find the rhythms to kind of figure that out, but 90 to 120 ounces of water per day. Eat food. Let's talk about what food is. We typically, food, by the nature of how our body can metabolize it, is typically going to be a single ingredient substance. Vegetables, potatoes, meat, right? Where we get into, and this is, again, the food industry is against us on all of us on this one, is like hyper processed snacks. It's not really food, right? Your body is now trying to metabolize food additives, chemicals, massive amounts of sugar, and it doesn't know how to do that, right? And so I want food, this word is really important because what you're eating is really important. The easiest way to think about it, we could get into the science of carbs, protein, fat, and I've gone through periods in my life where I've like tracked every gram of food I've eaten. It's a really extreme way to live your life, certain goals, right? But it is single ingredient whole foods. Is what you're looking for. And a good way to look, if you look at anything, if you look at any thing you're eating and you can't pronounce the words in the ingredient list, probably not food. And how we're defining it here. The other thing to really think about sugar is food. Sugar comes from a cane. It is single ingredient food. We have taken sugar, and this is honestly specifically in the US, and we have replicated it and put it in everything. I want you to look at how much sugar is in the wheat bread you have at home. More than you would want, right? And so educate yourself, be on the lookout for sugar. They'll call it different things. They'll call it corn syrup. They'll call it, there's a million names that they being producers can put ingredients in food that are supplement to sugar. That if you really do, there's limit your sugar. So be on the lookout for that. So single ingredient foods, look out for hyper processed foods. I'm not talking, we eat bread in our household. We eat, I make my kids mac and cheese, right? Like you don't have to go to the extreme, but just be aware and have bulk of your diet come from single ingredient foods. Like I had just personal example, I had kava today, because I think kava's any place where you can like choose your own ingredients, good place to do when you're eating out, but had Brussels sprouts, chicken, kale, all of these single ingredient foods. And so look for that even when you're eating out. Okay, not too much. I'm going to talk about this, but before I talk about this, I'm going to caveat and say that most of my ladies in the room are probably under eating. So don't interpret this as eat less. I want you to interpret not too much as eat mindfully. Listen to your cues, eat slowly, try not to eat while you're working. I'm really bad at it, granted. But eat slowly, pay attention to, am I full? Am I not full? And stop, right? So it's learning to, as children, our hunger cues are very intuitive. And as adults, we lose that over time. And so when I say not too much, I mean not too much for you. Again, I think the culture, and specifically for my ladies, this is true maybe for my males too, is you're most likely under eating. And this can be really scary. And if that's you, I'd highly recommend working with a coach to get a program that's right for you, and to help you kind of increase to the right amount of food that's for you. Just for context, and this is going to sound crazy, maybe it surprises people, maybe it doesn't. My maintenance calories is somewhere between 25 and 2,700 calories a day. Often when, women come and, again, I'm not a nutrition coach, but I will hear somewhere between the 1,200 and 1,400 calorie range a day. My 3-year-old eats more than that. So it's not enough food, but if that's what you have been eating, I highly recommend finding a coach to help you move out of what is probably metabolic dysfunction, and moved into where you can metabolize higher levels of quantities of food. So that's the not too much, is really around being mindful. Mostly protein and plants. This kind of goes back to here. Protein, if you were going to focus on one thing, protein is the most important, just for, again, brain function, muscle and stability, which we'll get into in a second. But if you're focusing here, it's going to be really hard to overeat in this way. You can only eat so much broccoli, right? Okay. Moderate alcohol. I don't hate alcohol. I personally drink alcohol. I want you to be educated on what alcohol is and how it works in your body. To be clear, from a purely biological, neurological, there is no amount of alcohol that is safe to consume. It is a toxin to the body. Just one that we've built cultural norms around, but it is a toxin to your body. Your body does not know how to metabolize alcohol, or it doesn't know how to fully metabolize it, and it can't use what it's metabolizing to produce energy or to drive functions of growth or to create brain power. It's purely metabolizing it to get it out of your system. One thing so if that doesn't, we'll talk about how to consume this moderately. I do personally consume alcohol, but I'll talk about how I've evolved my relationship with it having learned some of this, and I'll link a podcast that goes into the scientific baseline of how alcohol affects your brain and your body. But this a little bit more applicable. So, okay, you're out on the town. People going on the town? I'm a You're out on the town and you have a night out, you're having fun, you're cruising. What is the thing you're gonna go eat after you just have this amazing time out at the bars with your friends?
Broccoli.
Cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers, tacos, pizza, fries. Okay, here's the thing. When you consume alcohol, your body stops metabolizing everything until your liver has cleared the alcohol. So you put all this alcohol in your body. One, it impairs your judgment. So it's like fries and pizza sound like freaking amazing. Yeah, they do. You go eat the fries and the pizza, it's not metabolized. Your body can't metabolize it until it clears the alcohol. So this is true for mostly fat, because your liver is also critical in how it metabolizes fat. So like the dietary substance of fat, stores it as body fat because it's just hanging out there and can't be used as energy. So it's storing it as body fat until your body's able to clear it, and then it will metabolize the protein and the carbs, which are faster digesting. And so this whole thing we've set up is actually just like a circle, a vicious cycle of like drink, what makes us want to crave food. The alcohol doesn't allow us to metabolize the food. The food turns into body fat we don't necessarily want. We feel sluggish. We drink again. And so again, proponent of alcohol. I enjoy a nice glass of wine, specifically with my dad. And it's social, and there have been days in this job where I've been home and I'm like, shit, I just need a glass of wine. So like, I get it. I just want you to understand how it functions in your body so you can make good decisions on it. Yeah, Molly.
Does that apply, like, to your point, like if you're at dinner and you have a glass of wine, does that mean that like your dinner isn't digesting until need to work through the glass of wine first and then your dinner?
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't matter type of alcohol. It can be the fanciest wine. It can be Franzia. It can be Fireball whiskey.
It's not just like heavy drinking. It's like any amount.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you have a glass of wine, and if you were hydrating with that, right, your body is more easy. You're going to metabolize that faster. It's less of a hard tank as if you were just out. Yeah.
I had a question on the water.
Yeah.
You were talking about lukewarm water.
Yeah.
What's the downside of cold ice?
I just don't like to drink it.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like a
Same.
No, it's just it's just a personal preference. Your body sparkling, cold, hot, like your body doesn't know. So, okay, I've spent way too long on this one, so I'm going to move us forward. But eat is really important. Okay, maybe my favorite though, and the one I have changed my. Actually, before I do that, I want you to write down. You got your paper. Now I'm going to give you tactical protocols against this. Protocol 1, drink 90 to 120 ounces of water a day. Protocol 2, add protein to every meal or snack. I can provide a resource as to what a protein food is. But the goal is you're not necessarily tracking how much you're doing. You're just making sure that with every meal or snack, you're having some source of protein. And protein 3 is the 800 grams challenge, which I will link a resource to. And this is about increasing the amount of plants you do. So the goal is 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. And I think it's her name is EC, her last name's escaping me, but she's a lifestyle she's a nutritionist, but she has a lifestyle podcast and makes a lot of this like just easy to understand and digest. And her kind of coaching protocol is through increasing the amount of fruits and vegetables versus restricting. So I'll link to that, but that's the third protocol for this. So just write those down. And next, we're going to talk about sleep. Who gets excited about sleep? Me. I get excited about sleep. Sleep. Okay. How many hours are adults supposed to get? Anyone? Something you've heard?
7 to 9.
8 to 9.
7 to 9.
7 to 9. That is right. That is actually scientifically proven. The average adult needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And that is not 7 to 9 hours in bed. 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Yes.
Do women need more sleep than men?
Potentially, and typically during like the luteal phase of your cycle is when we can get really scientific. So listen to your body, but women typically skew. I'm personally closer to 8.5 or 9. Do I always get that? No, but I have been really disciplined about getting at least 7. And I'm about to tell you why. Before I do that, if you have small children, 9 to 11.
For them or for you?
That was really good. That was really good. No, if you have children for them, I mean, for a baby, it's like 24. So but like, small children and teenagers require more, just the amount of growing and neural development that's happening, and it's really, really important. So I want to kind of tell you some really cool things about sleep. So there is a process in sleep, and Dr. Matt Walker, I'll link all of his things, has done made a ton of progress on this really in just the last 5 years to really understand what our bodies do when we sleep. One thing that is, when we talk about longevity and kicking butt in our 90s, sleep is one of the most powerful preventers of neurodegenerative disease, so Alzheimer's, dementia, and that is because of a process. It's called, I'm going to get it, I've written it down because I can never pronounce it, the glymphatic process, so you don't need to remember that. Essentially, it cleans your gunk out of your brain every night. So while your body is sleeping through certain stages of sleep, your body is cleaning out, removing proteins from the myelin and the neurons in your brain. And they have linked the accumulation of those proteins to Alzheimer's and dementia late in life. So your body is preventing Alzheimer's while you sleep. Okay? Super cool stuff. The second piece that's maybe more relevant to our current state is actually, I'll quiz you. My 4-year-old is learning to ride bike, right? So he's learning like the rhythms and like trying to get the movements. After a bout of learning, so that can be riding a bike, it can be trying to figure out a complex problem for work. It could be trying to synthesize a bunch of information, which is what we typically do. We call it drinking from the fire hose, and we have to do something with that information. What is the number one thing you can do to help kind of process and solidify that information?
Sleep.
Take a nap. Okay, they're taking naps in the office, but it is proven that studying and learning long consolidated sleep is how we do that. And so like the term, I'm going to sleep on it, is actually scientifically proven. Like you should sleep on it. And I wish I'd known this in college. Like I'm a recovering like hustle culture, no sleep elitist, right? Like, and if I had known like in college, like, hey, I just need to do a focus bout for 90 minutes and then sleep for 8 hours, that'd have been way more fun than the way that I approached it. But now we know. Okay, so when it comes to study and memory, super, super important, and just in learning consolidation, sleep is extremely important. If you tell me, I'm going to get on to Kevin because he said he doesn't sleep a lot, and I tell him that every day. I hope he watches this. Some people say, hey, I just don't need that much sleep. There's a small population of people with the DEC2 gene mutation that they don't. They need like 4 to 6 hours of sleep. Can you guess what percentage of the population carries that gene mutation?
0.5%.
0.00.
1%. So it's probably not you. Okay, sleep's really important, really, really important. So I'm gonna go through some quick protocols of things you can do. Again, I want you to write these all down. I know it's gonna feel overwhelming. We're gonna talk about that at the end, but so number one thing you can do according to Dr. Matt Walker is create a consistent bedtime. Go to bed within 30 to 60 minutes the same day. And bonus, if you can wake up at the same time. So consistent wake and sleep patterns, really, really important for the circadian rhythm. So write that down, consistent sleep times. Get morning sunlight. Again, this is tied to circadian rhythm and the way our biology takes the way the sun hits our eyes and signals alertness in the morning, really important. Build a consistent wind down routine. Avoid caffeine 8 to 10 hours before bedtime. And the last one is no screens in the bedroom. This is a screen. This is a screen. If you need a $12 alarm clock, I will personally buy you one. Okay, we're going to come back to these habits, these protocols in a little bit. I'm going to move us forward, just given time. I'm without a doubt going to run over. So sleep, really important. We'll talk through some tactical things. We talked through some tactical things of ways to improve it. What am I going to write? We should write something. It's awesome. And then study and learning consolidation.
This is a how to feel bad about yourself session.
Okay, next one. Train. I'm intentionally using the word train and not exercise for a reason. Exercise is what we hate to do. Train is how we become harder to kill. And so like, honestly, it's a mindset shift when you say something like, I'm going to train, right? It feels different than, oh, I have to go exercise, right? And we are training. We are training to get butt in our 90s and to be high-performing humans. I get a lot of times, I'll be in the gym and people are like, what are you training? You don't have to be training for anything. That's real. So a few things just before we dive into some specific protocols on training is this is the aside from sleep and its impact on preventative measures around Alzheimer's and I can't say that word, brain disease. Exercise is the number one thing you can do to prevent 3 of the 4 leading causes of death in the United States: cardiovascular disease, brain disease, metabolic dysfunction, diabetes. The 4th is cancer. And we're coming a long way on there in terms of preventative medicine. I believe we will come to a spot where a lot of these things tie together in terms of being preventative for cancer, but it is scientifically proven that exercise training is the number one thing you can do to prevent 3 of the 4 causes of death in the United States. So it is, if you choose anything, this one, for longevity. And then it kind of breaks down into 4 different aspects of training that a complete program would include. So I'm going to talk through those today. One is mobility and stability. So I won't make you do it in the room, but when you're at home by yourself tonight, or with your family, I want you to stand on one foot. Okay. You can do that. Cool. You're chilling, stand on one foot. I want you to close your eyes. Brutal. Okay. My hunch is you're going to look like my toddler doing it, and that's okay. But stability and mobility is extremely important not only for our ability to function as high-performing humans in the day-to-day, but really this is a longevity play. So a stat I want you to think about, we all have, or those of us that have aging parents or friends, right? So if someone over the age of 65 were to break their hip, their risk of all-cause mortality within 1 year goes up 15 to 30%. Right? That's a lot. Age of 65. My dad's 66. Right? And so this, though, is important in terms of reducing the amount of falls, right? Being able to be on your feet. And I have some recommended programs that I would recommend for mobility and stability that don't take a lot of time, right? It's mostly just the practice, but super important building block as we think about a complete exercise or training program. The second, let's go. There we go. The second is aerobic capacity. You'll also hear this called Zone 2 training. Anyone heard of this? Zone 2 training? So this is, I would say, the kind of probably the most widespread. So like running can be Zone 2. A lot of the classes you might take at a fitness center is probably Zone 2. You know, Zone 2 is referring to the, there's 5 zones when we think about our heart rate, right? So right now we're all in Zone 1. That's, not quite resting, which we would get to while we're sleeping, but we're not exercising. Zone 2 is where you can maintain a conversation, but you kind of don't want to. It's like, I could talk to you, but like, I really prefer to just like focus on my breathing. That is a Zone 2. And it is really important because it strengthens our ability to pump blood, right? And it creates, it strengthens our actual heart arteries with that consistent volume of flow. So when we think about cardiovascular disease and how a lot of that deteriorates, Zone 2 is really the preventative measure. This has been the one that I have, since kind of doing some of this research, changed my perspective on. Like, I'm CrossFit. It's like hardcore all the time, right? Is the mentality of that. And I've added a lot of Zone 2. And it's just fun, like put on a rucksack and walk around, I really enjoy it. The third is strength. So strength comes in the form of absolute strength. So we think about the ability to squat, to deadlift, to press, to bench press, to move weight, to move capacity with our body, and power. Power is also a component of strength. Again, as we age, and this is particular to, women have a different curve on this, a faster decline in muscle capacity as we age, particularly when we start to hit, my age, 35 to 40, we start to see a decline in our ability to maintain muscle. But maintaining it, we tie it back to mobility and stability, our ability to not only carry our mass, but be agile and flexible as we age is really, really important. Muscle also plays a critical component in just how we metabolize food. And the more muscle we have, the faster we metabolize food. And it kind of makes the whole thing work. One myth I want to debunk right now is that lifting weights will make you bulky. So I want to debunk that. And this is, I'll use myself as a personal example. I lift heavy weight 3 to 4 times a week. I don't think I look bulky. So you can make your own judge of that. And I've done that for over 10 years. So lifting weights does not make you bulky. This is though, and I'm going to pause that before I talk about if you're not doing anything today, where do you start, right? And then the last one is VO2 max or anaerobic. And all of these so VO2 max or anaerobic is where you're hitting Zone 5. Like you're hitting max heart rate and you're typically doing it. It's something you can only sustain for 1 to 3 minutes. This sucks. This kind of training like just absolutely sucks. It's not fun. Super important. Peter Attia, so Dr. Peter Attia is scientist really in longevity. He was a consultant at McKinsey, which is kind of a cool fact for a little bit. But he says this is the number one longevity metric is someone's VO2 max against their age range. And it does have to be intentionally trained. So examples of that would be like running up a long hill as fast as you can and then walking down and then running up that hill again. So you can do it on a bike. There are many ways to VO2 train. But he would say this is the most predictive factor of longevity is your VO2 max. I listed it specifically in this order because if you're not doing anything today and you're looking to start something, I recommend starting in this order. Start with mobility and strength, move to aerobic. When you start to move into these two, which again, this is where we start to like snowball the benefits from the work we're doing when we're building strength and hitting VO2 max is where we really see the tipping point of the benefits from exercise. I highly recommend finding a coach or a program to coach you through these. To avoid injury and to make sure you're progressing in the right way. Again, I'll have recommendations on ones that I personally follow or others that I recommend. But for these two, you can start tomorrow. So with that, we'll go to, be mindful of my time. For the train, I want you to, one, hit a step goal of 8,500 to 10,000 steps a day. 2, be consistent with 15 to 30 minutes of movement, 5 to 6 times a week, focusing on mobility and aerobic capacity. 3, find a strength program that works for you.
Repeat the second one.
Be consistent with 15 to 30 minutes of movement, 5 to 6 times per week. All right. That is our train category.
What was the third one?
Find a strength program that works for you. Okay. I've got a few more, and then we'll get to what do you do with the 30 things I've had you write down. Okay. Think. And thinking is a lost art. We don't think very much more. It's really hard to find time to think. But before I talk about think and like really how it applies to this, our current environment. So this one is very much about current state performance and your ability to operate in a present environment. Want to share just a few kind of facts. Since 2020, so since the pandemic, can you guess how much online meetings has gone up? Percentage.
200.
Any other sheet?
What was the start point? Sorry.
How much has it gone up since 2020?
2020. I'm going
600.
600.
Yeah, it's 252. So Brian.
Correct.
252% since 2020.
AI.
Online meetings have gone up. Simultaneously, the duration of those meetings has gone down from about a 48-minute average to like a 22-minute average. So we're having more of these really short, choppy, context-switching meetings. I know we all feel that. Feel it, right? Let's talk about what that does to our brain. Okay, so your brain, when you are a small child, most likely through the age of 5, your brain is doing what's a process called neurogenesis. So it is creating new neurons, like you're actually getting smarter, like your brain is getting smarter. You're building more capacity to learn and to develop. There is, I would say there's some maybe hypothesis that neurogenesis continues into adulthood. The science does not yet prove it. So for the sake of today, we're going to say through childhood, you're developing all these net new neurons. So that's why kids like one day can't walk and then the next day they can, right? It's because they're actually creating these things in their brain. As we come into adulthood, the number of net new neurons that we create becomes, if anything, very, very small, but most likely we hit a certain point. But we can still learn, right? We can still learn as adults very much. We can still learn, we can still grow. And that is done through a process called, I'm gonna get it right, neuroplasticity. Anyone heard of neuroplasticity? Yeah. So neuroplasticity is the process by which we learn as adults, which is actually the strengthening and weakening of certain connections within our brain. So, right. So like, what's a habit? Who has a habit? All right, I got one. Checks their phone every time they go to the bathroom. Yeah, everyone better raise their hand. So that has become a habit, right? Which means that the more times we do that, the connection in our brain that's saying, go to the bathroom, pick up phone, go to the bathroom, pick up phone, continuously gets strengthened, right? Like we're telling it, this is important to know, remember it, so it becomes harder to break. And it, it's actually like the myelin growth. It's like there's a whole scientific thing, but it doesn't matter. It gets strengthened. Okay. So that's how we learn. We can also unlearn. So if I say, I am no longer going to take my phone to the bathroom, it can be really hard the first time because that brain, that thing is really strong. But if I do that over time, that particular connection between the two neurons will start to weaken, right? And we can start to unlearn it. So that's how we build habits. That's how we learn new things. That's also how we break habits. What is happening when we don't create intentional time to think and to focus is that the connections we're building are all not helpful. Like, I don't know. I don't know that using my phone when I go to the bathroom is a helpful thing, right? Like it's not helping me drive. It's not helping me think critically. It's not helping me. And so we get in this habit, like we're strengthening these connections that really don't drive critical thinking and really don't drive true deep learning and understanding. And the more we do that, the harder it gets to get into a state of focus, right? And so that's both true for like the more we context switch in our current, like in our meeting environment, the harder it is going to be to pivot into a working block where we're actually doing critical thinking and solving real problems and moving balls forward. Similarly to in your personal life, the more you are building connections of like being on social media and all of those, fun things we like to do, the harder it is to pivot out of that and to be present with your family at dinner. Because we've strengthened the thing in our brain to say that's what we need it to do. And so be mindful of how that works, and remember that specifically when it comes to social media, those platforms are designed, they're working off the dopamine system, and they're designed to keep you in it. So just remember that when it comes to how we truly learn and how we truly retain information, it is through intentional focus blocks. I would say between 90 and 120 minutes. When you get beyond 120 minutes, your brain starts to tire, right? Like you can't do it. So focus blocks. 90 to 120 minutes. All right. On a particular problem. So again, I've been at Credera a long time. Would it surprise anyone to know that there is one day a week in my calendar that I block for meetings?
No.
Been that way for 2 years, right? Still been very successful here. Certain people know that. Certain people know how to squeeze their way onto my calendar on those days, but what that allows me to do is there's still 30 something hours where like I'm available for like the back and forth, all of that. I've got one day, and I typically go into it with one thing I want to solve for the day. And I focus. And I'll set a 90-minute block, like time block, a 90-minute timer on my phone. I'll turn everything off, Teams off, email down. It is just me and this problem, and often involves a whiteboard because that's how I think. And if I check my phone, if I check a team, the timer starts over. And it takes practice. It really does take practice. But I think there is so much untapped potential just in this room, like in the people that are here and your expertise and your brain power that we are leaving on the table because you're not creating space to use it. And you're letting it just like bumble along, right, with the next urgent thing. And this does impact your ability to be a high performer. So how we think matters. Also, the content we consume matters. And so be aware of that. So things to write down on this. 1 focus block a week. Again, if you've never done a focus block in your life, start with 60 minutes. Challenge yourself to get to 90 to 120 with that.
You recommended time of day for that block?
I think it's individual. I am most productive in the morning with these blocks. So like not even on those days I won't check email or Teams at all before I start. Again, make sure your PDs, the people around you know that that's what you're doing and not just somewhere doing whatever. But it's dependent on the day. For me, it's morning. This one's fun. When you're multitasking, say in your head or out loud, I'm multitasking. Multitasking is a myth. You can't actually do it. Like the brain does not multitask. We just use it to make ourselves feel good about being productive. But we're actually splitting our attention and splitting our focus and doing 2 things mediocre instead of giving 100% attention. And you do it more than you think. So one way of just be aware of it. If you're multitasking, and multitasking is not just in the work context. If you're driving in the car with your partner or your friend and you're on your phone, that's multitasking. Connecting, listening on your phone, right? And so be aware of it. Say it out loud. And then this one's also fun. Make all of your social media passwords like they're really hard, like XY34, that like something you can't remember, and log out of the app every time you get on it. I'm not saying delete your social media accounts. I'm saying when you go to get on it, you're going to have to intentionally go find that password. Don't cheat with a thumbprint thing, my Apple users. Intentionally go find that password and make sure, darn sure, you want to spend your time in that way. So create a buffer between them. So those are the 3 for think. I'm not going to give you 15 minutes to ask questions, but I will stay after. And then the last one is connect. And that's connect with others, with yourself, and with something larger than you. It's been kind of, it's not as tactical as the other ones. It's really important. How we connect with others. We're social beings, even if you're an introvert. I'm actually an introvert. Didn't know that, but like even if you're social beings, how we connect with others is really important. And how we maintain those connections is really important. So the first thing to think about when it comes to connecting with others is who are you connecting with? Who's seen the meme, like you become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with? That's really true. And you should be really mindful of how you feel after certain interactions. A big shift, like I'll just use an example for myself, was there was a period in my life before kids where, I would spend Friday evenings and there was drinking and, with a certain group of people that I was friends with, acquaintances with, enjoyed spending. But the conversation would always like go somewhere. And then the next day I'd be like, that just doesn't feel good. And I think like be mindful of that and choose your friends wisely, but, choose who you are surrounding with yourselves, with people that support you, that support what you're trying to achieve, that understand you, and give back to them. And what I mean by that is be empathetic with every interaction, whether it's your friends, whether it's, myself standing here, whether it's Kevin as he's taking in his new role. Try to understand what they're going through before you jump to conclusions, and use that as a mechanism for connection. How are you, not just how are you feeling? Are you happy? What made you laugh today? Right? Take it a layer below what is superficial and really try to get to know one another and connect with one another. It's really powerful. And there's data and science around how the dopamine we receive here is a lot stronger than the dopamine we receive here. And it can happen in every interaction we have. So connect with others, connect with yourself, create time just to be. This can look different for everyone. It can be walks, long walks. It can be forms of meditation. There's many forms of that. We have the Calm app through Omnicom, but give yourself space just to be, and like don't label what that's supposed to be. Like you don't have to be good at meditating. That's not the point of meditating, right? The point is to just be, allow your thoughts to wander. Typically, I find that this takes, if I go for a hike and I allow my brain to just like go wherever it wants to go, it's about 60 to 75 minutes before I can get to a place of quiet in my head. And I'm not doing that every day. I'm not even doing that every week, to be clear. I mean, I try to meditate 5 to 6 times a week, 10 minutes, but every few weeks, spend some time with yourself and just watch what comes from that. You don't have to act on it. Write it down, listen to it. And then the last one, connect with something larger to you. This could be spiritual, it could be religious, it could be nature. But just remember, like in the grand scheme of things, our being there's bigger things out there than us. To bring us, I've shared this with a few people, but for me, I connect on this one. Nature is a big one for me. And I just love being, yesterday I went on a long walk and just on the beach. I was in LA and just watching the waves and the surf and the sunrise is a way for me to connect to that, similar to the mountains. The other place is the airplane. Not the typical place, but I've shared this with you people. If you get on an airplane at like business rush hour, okay, so next time you're flying somewhere, right? And it's business rush hour, I want you to observe, right? Because we all got our fancy backpacks and, like our cool little wagons. We like walk on the plane and we like sit down and we like pull out our laptops and we're doing all this important. And if you watch it in mass, it's like, is this real life? Like, is this a simulation? Because this feels absurd, right? And it's just a good reminder of like, it matters, but it doesn't, right? And so find what that means for you. And I have some, again, things that I've done personally, but there's a million ways you can take that. Okay, things on this one. Let's do this real quick and then I'll wrap us up. And I can hang out for as long as we need for questions. Happy to also set up another session if people are interested in it. But go for a 30-minute walk with no distractions 2 times a week. No distractions, meaning no headphones either, no music, no distractions. 10 minutes of daily meditation. Put your phone away when spending time with others. Something on that one, something I've started doing at home. Again, I have young kids. I will actually just go plug my phone in, like where it stays for the night when I get home for the day. That way I don't even have it with me. So that could be dinner at friends, find a place to keep it away, but put it away. And then the last one is more relevant to this. Prep for meetings by thinking about how you want your audience to feel. Not what you want them to hear. What do you want them to feel? And that goes to the connect with others bucket.
Can you give an example of like how you've done that concretely, like for a meeting?
Yeah.
What did that process look like for you?
A good example, maybe I'll give some of my trade secrets away. So the Sales and Delivery Leadership Forum. So that is a group we have established this year, really our L4 plus leadership. It's a group of about 250 individuals. That has been, a little bit of my brainchild this year, and I've established it and led it. When I go into those meetings, it is a mix of, hey, I want people to feel like we're in control of this. Like they can trust me and I'm doing the work and I'm in control of it, while simultaneously feeling like they can speak, right? And then so you use your tone, you use how much you're speaking, you use self-deprecating humor in times to intentionally create an environment where people are feeling those two things simultaneously. It's an art, and it's independent to your own leadership style. And there will be some meetings. I do this a lot with my peers, those partners on the call of like, I really don't necessarily need to be in control of that group. And so it's like, I want this to feel collaborative. And so my tone is lower. I step back. I allow others to go in. I pose a question, right? I lead the conversation, but I don't overpower it. And so the way you show up and the way you lead has a huge impact on how people not only perceive the content you're presenting, but perceive you as their leader, as their peer. So, okay, we've got 1 minute. So here's what I want to do real quick. So you've got, I don't know, approximately 30 things on this list. The way I have applied this, and this is what I want to go personally study, is the 3 ways that we can make this happen is through focus, discipline, and surrender. So focus, I want you to circle one, not one per category, one thing that you want to change in the current way you do life. The next challenge is after you've picked one, you're going to do it for 30 days. And you're not going to miss a day or whatever the protocol is if it's not every day. But you're going to do that consistently for a month. You're not going to worry about the other 29. You get to pick one and you're going to be really disciplined in how you implement that. And one thing that I have found with being disciplined is using the phrase, I'm the kind of person that. So it's not like, oh, I have to get up at 5 a.m. Just I said I was going to do that. It's like, no, I'm the kind of person that gets up at 5 a.m. Right? So make it about who you are in your daily rhythms to help do that. And then surrender, realize that life's going to happen. We're going to travel. Our kids are going to be sick. I haven't worked out in 11 days, just to be clear, because I've been sick and my kids have been sick. Have grace for that. Do not use surrender as an excuse to not be disciplined, right? It kind of gets wonky. But if something does happen, pick it right up the next day. Have grace and pick it up the next day. You're going to do one for 1 month, and only then you get to add a second one. Okay, that's how you build habits. That's how you make this. This is something that, again, I'm at this 12 years now, really studying, kind of doing this. So 1% better. That's all I have to do. 1% better every day. And when you're 90, you're going to be a kick-ass human, right? So you don't have to tackle this all at once, one at a time. Build some discipline around it. Have some grace. Add another one. And you'll be kicking ass in your 90s. That's all I got. I will hang out. I know I took us right. I need to work on that timing. I'm happy to hang out and answer questions, talk about this. This is way more fun than timesheets and pipeline. I'm here for it. Those that joined virtually, thank you so much. One more thing you will notice in the link to this, there is a donation site for a nonprofit that is really meaningful, that teaches all of this to underserved youth and to children, and is proven to change lifetime outcomes for them. I would be honored if you learned something today, or if I have impacted you in my 10 years here, for you to take what you were going to spend on your next drink and donate it to a really good cause. So I'll link that. I'll send out the resources, but I appreciate the opportunity to share what I love with you guys today. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Any questions in the room?
I have one.
Yeah.
As a mom, wife, executive, what's the hardest on this board for you to maintain?
Connect. Connect has been the hardest. Sleep for a while, and sleep, I'll be honest, was like less. It was some figuring out my schedule that allowed me to do everything I wanted to do. And so if you followed my LinkedIn, I've talked about how I've changed my schedule pretty substantially this year. And so some of it was figuring that out, just like the pure logistics of that amount of time in bed. But there was also ego tied to like, I don't sleep, like there was also ego tied to that I really had to work through. I think I'm kind of on the other side of that, but I am focused, especially as I go into a little bit of some time away, on how I build connections with people that are and create space for that in my life. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I got one.
Yeah.
On the focus block, I'm curious, a lot of people here are younger in their careers, might have less control over their work schedules. What would you recommend to people who at least either might not have control or might not feel like they have enough control over their schedule to actually try to block out an hour?
I mean, if you can't block out an hour, let me talk to your leader. Just kidding. No, I think, look, have meaningful conversations on this, because you're gonna deliver better outcomes for your client. And if you can't block off 2 hours in a week, like, again, let me talk to your leader. I mean, I say that jokingly, but and some of it is try different times of day, right? That could work. For a long time, I did Friday afternoons. Like when I was full-time on Army, it was Friday afternoons. That, client was relatively low. And so I think it's getting it on your calendar, keeping it consistent on your calendar, and then having some discipline around not letting people block it. And then working with your leaders to say why this is important. So
You do the same thing for if it is like a client who is like, maybe you're trying a very meeting heavy client to have conversations with.
do you really not have a 90-minute
No,
block?
I can't. I've been on clients before that, like when I was at Angie and I was across like 3 different teams, I was with staffing.
Yeah.
I never had a free moment.
Yeah, I would say take something off your plate.
Yeah.
I would say if you're really in that spot where you're juggling 3 client teams and an internal function, and you truly cannot find 2 hours to focus, you have too much on your plate, and your performance is going to go up by taking something off. I don't know if I have any hands. I don't think I do.
I'll raise my hand.
Matt, go for it.
What, first off, thank you for this. I love it. It was refreshing compared to the rest of probably all of our days. So thank you. I'm sure you have a massive list, but top 3 books that you've used to kind of help you with this.
Yeah, and I actually do have a massive list that is prepared to go out, so you will get all of this. But
Oh,
I would
sweet.
say, the number one book, and it is a highly technical book, like it's almost, I read it like a textbook. It's Outlived by Dr. Peter Attia. And again, Peter Attia is a longevity expert, and that's what he trains for, and has done a ton of research in, and is leading the way, I think, and truly what the study of this is. And it starts really technical and then gets to, the back half is application based. Learned a ton from him. Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. That's also one that Kevin mentioned. Really hits on this bucket in a work context. So that one is really good. And then the third one is not a book, but the Huberman series, the Huberman Lab series of podcast. Again, very technical. So these are like, if you want to understand all the science, these are the ones I would recommend. I also have some that are more lifestyle. So like, how do you just apply this? And it simplifies some of the science behind it. But the Huberman podcast, if you want to understand the neuroscience behind all of this, is also really good.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
but I do have a full list of resources that I'll send out.
Thank you.
Anything else? That was weird. Ryan just kissed,
Blake.
Blake's hand.
Yeah. I have no regrets. Yeah, yeah, it's just connecting.
Well, if something jumps out at you and you have questions, and I love talking on this topic, and I don't know how this is going to evolve, but this was really fun. So I hope you learned something and would love any feedback you have to share. So, okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
I got a couple of them, so I can't judge too hard. That's funny.
And then I was like,
How are you? How are you?
I don't know if you work out.
You gotta speak it into existence.
I work on my settle things. No, I mean,
Yeah, no, not really.
Well, not Denver.
Trying to decide what type of event they want to do. That's really the big difference. Like, they don't want it to just be like with the schema we had, sending just the manuscript. Such an event, or different types of curriculum for one.
Which one did you?
It holds like, you know, like the print screens and stuff. Yeah. Wants to just pass that along.
Mine is white. I picked the white
Can't
one.
figure out what it's gonna be.
like, if you go to bed like
Elementary.
an hour late.
It's here. It's increasing the food intake. I
So
struggle
then they're saying that, well, then we're creasing.
regular grocery shopping so that I can't like.
Ah, yeah. This is my mental, like, is that like my phone? That's really what they're arguing
Like
about.
especially when
Like, there's really a strange.
yeah.
So maybe they think they want to pass us.
I'm less concerned about like quality of food, just like I need to go buy
That too.
Yeah.
So that might be what we end up doing, I'm not sure.
I feel like that's like.
Trying to decide on something by Monday.
So we have a meeting next Friday, but that's something to rush me through. Because there's not that many. Whoa!
Oh,
Not that many people in the office. You.
Oh, right, okay. So they're just playing time.
Yeah, probably.
did we?
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's very personal.
Hi, guys. Can we do it?
No one wants these.
Did you learn anything?
Look, they're kind of weird.
Keep them?
They're kind of weird. I didn't know you can keep them, you know?
I was like,
It's kind of weird.
there's a lot.